Welcome to the show, everybody. Happy Tuesday. This is the Paul Harrell program. Glad to be with you, broadcasting live, of course, on LFA TV. We got a great show for you. Going to talk a little bit. We got a ton to talk about. We are going to talk about the situation in the Middle East and the meltdown from some at the prospect of peace. And what is that going to look like? What does that mean? But we're leading with this story about the Southern Poverty Law Center because we have yet another indictment and another superseding indictment. I think this is now the second one that piled onto the first two that essentially confirms, again, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, has been false flagging the nation for decades now. When the initial story broke, I'll remind you that there were even people that went back to the Oklahoma City bombing and were pointing out these so-called SPLC informants that were part of this. And so what this latest story is, where you have this leader at the SPLC essentially carrying on a love affair with a neo-Nazi or a supposed neo-Nazi who had infiltrated the group, and then there was a burglary, and then they paid somebody to take the fall for the burglary, all the while she was enriching herself. It is absolutely an insane story, but it reeks of... this is just my initial take from a 30,000-foot view. It reeks of an intelligence operation. And I think that's what we're seeing now, just like you see overseas. You know, we've covered this before, the 2014 Maidan Revolution in Ukraine and all of these NGOs that were there to kind of, initiate that coup. And now we're finding out that I believe that the intelligence oligarchy has actually been weaponized against the American people for much longer. It's not just with Donald Trump. It's been weaponized against us for a long time. What better way to use this, a nonprofit watchdog, the SPLC, there to point out racism and stand up for, civil rights. But in reality, they've been co-opted as just means of dividing us, of creating false flags, of creating fake crises, then fundraising off of those things. It's exactly what the government does, or the deep state does. So we're going to talk about that again, as well as what's going on in the Middle East. J.D. Vance going on to The View, going into the lion's den, if you will. Didn't go well for the ladies on The View. And so we're going to talk about all of that. It's a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and the show starts right now.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, broadcasting from the great state of Arkansas, and brisket prices are still too high. This is still something that I'm always going to bring up. Brisket prices got to come down. This is supposed to be the poor man's cut of meat, but it's just gotten so popular. Everybody trying to get that perfect, that perfect rendered fat. That's what we need. We need T-shirts. I need a couple of T-shirts. I need one. By the way, I do have a vision someday. If I had a wish list, one of those would be to create my own barbecue brand. But I want a T-shirt that just says "Render the Fat." I think that means, to me, when I think of the phrase "rendering the fat," I think of hard work, right? And I think you could use that phrase. People say, "Well, sit down and let's chew the fat." Let's get to the meat and potato. Let's get to the bottom of the. Let's talk about this. I think we should amend that. Let's render the fat. It's something that takes a while. It takes wisdom. It takes a skill in order to get that to happen in the right way, if we're talking barbecue. But we also want those T-shirts made. Someday we're going to do it, and we're going to let you guys buy them if you want. But my personal favorite that is totally a political message would be a T-shirt that says, "Banning things is good sometimes." Which is kind of, honestly, if I had to encapsulate my trek, my journey away out of libertarianism, that would be the phrase that encompasses my journey out of libertarianism. It would just be banning things is good, ... sometimes. Anyway, what a shout out to the Elevate chat. Thank you guys so much for being with us. Rob is not with us today. Eric's not with us today, so you'll have to forgive me for that, because I know you guys really appreciate the show a lot more when it's not just me. But they'll be joining us again soon, hopefully tomorrow and the rest of the week. But anyway, so yeah, the Southern Poverty Law Center, this indictment that came down, a month or so ago, or a couple of months now. I mean, it was absolutely one of the bright spots. I don't think you can say, I don't even think it's an arguable point. It's one of the bright spots in terms of accountability, kind of accountability that we've never even seen, we didn't even really see coming. We still have got a lot of accountability that we want the Trump administration to pursue. I still don't have a ton of confidence in the Department of Justice, but you have to give Todd Blanche, I guess, credit where credit is due. Some people are more pessimistic and they say, oh, this is just a bone. They just threw us a bone. I don't think that at all when it comes to this case. I mean, if you were to just look at how the left melts down. They can't even handle this idea that this cherished, storied institution that was used as some arbiter of neutrality, meaning like whatever the Southern Poverty Law Center says goes. Not even neutral is the wrong word, but it was just essentially like the Southern Poverty Law Center is essentially like was used by the left as like a clergy, as like some form of religious authority in a way for their woke sex religion, based on gay race communism or whatever, and they could condemn you, they could absolve you. Of course, the standards could always change and evolve based on what they want to accomplish politically. We know that. So the fact that you had this indictment come down in the first place saying that they were paying the very neo-Nazis that they were trying to fight or expose is a huge blow to their credibility. I even saw a headline, preceding the latest development with this, saying that Airbnb, apparently they were using the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate list to ban people from being able to use or rent properties. And I saw a headline, I don't know if it's accurate because I just was browsing, but that the SPLC will no longer be used by, I think it was Airbnb, as part of this. Essentially, it's a cancellation. It's a means to cancel people. It's a means to make people suffer. It's a means to do what the government up to this point can't do or is not supposed to do. This blurring of the line between, politics, government, and private business. Oh, it's a private business, so, they can do whatever they want. And I support that in theory, but when you get to the point where you're also behaving very much like corrupt FBI agents, like in the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping case, where that whole case wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for the entrapment by the FBI. By the way, one of the guys that got convicted is now being given a new trial, or his conviction was overturned, and now the prosecutors are probably going to retry him. But then you had a bunch of guys that were acquitted because they were able to prove that this was not real, because it was just the FBI entrapping people. So, and this, you can't really say entrapment anymore without going to the most glaring example recently, which would be January 6th as well. So there's a pattern here of what to do to discredit a movement, to promote the narrative that you want to have promoted, and the SPLC has been doing this for a very long time, and I don't think it's a stretch to say this is what intelligence deep state networks do, and that's what they did, and now they've been caught for it, and it's a very encouraging piece of information. The New York Post has this headline: SPLC boss funneled $1.2 million to lover in neo-Nazi group. The pair even had a joint bank account. And what's interesting about the joint bank account aspect of this is what that means is that the SPLC is paying the neo-Nazi, or the guy who's infiltrated the neo-Nazi group, and then that money gets deposited into the joint bank account. So basically, she's paying herself because she controlled the money that the neo-Nazi put into her own bank account that originally came from her employer that she was working for. The term double dip does come to mind. Also, I will say this, Matt Walsh has already published this, so I wish I would have thought of this first because it is hilarious. This should be made into a romantic comedy. Can you imagine something more hilarious than putting this on the silver screen, putting a Southern Southern Pop, the whole thing would be hilarious. A ridiculous romantic comedy where these two people fall in love, and he's the informant, or he's the neo-Nazi. Actually, forget the informant. He's the neo-Nazi. She works for. It's like a Romeo and Juliet. It's the Capulet and Montesquieu. It's perfect, right? It's perfect. West Side Story. We should. I think that's great. I wish I would have thought of that. Somebody should definitely write that. If they haven't already, somebody should definitely write that. Deb Paul in 2020 says, "Hi, Paul." Hi, Deb. Good to see you. Thank you for being a part of the show. We really appreciate it. Let's see here. What do we got? Mary I Am. Hi, Paul. Hello, Mary. Appreciate you watching the show. Appreciate everybody out there. I'm going to do my best to watch the chat. Normally when Rob is here or Eric is here, they watch the chat while I have to run all of the gizmos here. So this piece on the New York Post, written by Chadwick Moore, and headline, "A top Southern Poverty Law Center official is accused of helping funnel $1.2 million in donor money to an informant in the National Alliance white supremacist group." Okay, so National Alliance is this white supremacist group that was founded a long time ago, and it's basically, dwindled down to nothing. And by the way, even when it dwindled down to nothing, the SPLC was still writing articles about it to fundraise. The Department of Justice has filed a superseding indictment against the SPLC, accusing it of funneling donor cash to hate groups that they were then telling donors they were fighting. So it's the same thing, but it's just a more specific. It's the same thing that they've been doing, but it's just more specific. One instance here. So one figure referred to in the indictment as Employee 2 is described as, quote, a person who would become director of the SPLC's intelligence project. Now, this is one of those things that's just in plain sight. As I'm comparing what they're doing to what the intel oligarchy does, weaponizing their whole system against Donald Trump or the American people or J6ers or whatever, sometimes it's in plain sight. She's literally the head of the intelligence project. And when you actually read what's going on here, you get real official narrative Watergate vibes about, breaking into the DNC headquarters. They broke in, they burgled a place and then framed some other guy for it. Well, they paid him $6,000 to take the fall. It's just crazy stuff. Matter of fact, I think this report actually exposes, there's way more questions I have now than I do, answers. So it also describes how employee number 2 wrote an article based on material stolen from National Alliance headquarters in 2014 and then paid off an informant to take the blame for robbery. Based on the details in the June 2nd superseding indictment, Employee 2 is believed to be Heidi Barrich. Heidi Barrich, a 58-year-old fascism expert who is the director of intelligence at the Alabama-based anti-extremism nonprofit between 2012 and 2019. She's a fascism expert, guys. That's crazy. It's kind of funny. I was recently, let me just say this, there are, just an observation, there are no communist experts in these groups, right? Well, because she's a fascism expert with the expectation that she's going to fight fascism, right? But you never hear of any of these groups or adjacent groups who have, I'm a communism expert, I'm going to fight communism. And that's because the SPLC is a communist organization, right? And so her expertise being, I'm a fascism expert. She's actually really a communist in all likelihood, and is an expert on how to implement communism under the guise of fighting fascism. So based on the details, that's who they think this is. New York Post saying they think that employee number 2 is Heidi Barrich, who looks like this. This is her. She was the head of the intelligence project at the SPLC, 2012 to 2019. So the indictment alleges that Barrich was very close to the informant known as only F9, who infiltrated the neo-Nazi organization National Alliance. We don't know who this guy is or girl is, assuming it's a guy. F9, yeah, it's got to be a guy. F9, okay, so this is a mystery. Maybe we'll uncover who F9 is very soon. Barrich was also in a romantic relationship with F9. During this relationship, Barrich and F9 shared a house and 2 bank accounts. Between 2015 and 2021, approximately $140,000 in donors' money flowed from the SPLC operating account and was ultimately deposited into the joint bank accounts held by F9 and Barrich. There she is again. That's what she looks like. Excuse me. Interesting. This amounted to approximately 66% of all money ever deposited into their joint bank accounts was from the SPLC. The indictment also claims that while getting paid by the SPLC, the unnamed informant was also raising money for the National Alliance, neo-Nazi group, and helping to carry out its extremist activities. So again, here we have the crux of the whole indictment. The original indictment is the SPLC is paying for the advancement of, in this case, neo-Nazism. They're literally paying they're paying an informant to infiltrate a white supremacist group to carry out white supremacist ideology that then they can use to say, see, it's a huge problem. It's the white man in America is the sole focus of domestic terrorism, is a great domestic terrorism threat, which of course led to the FBI writing about this. It led to the FBI. It led to the SPLC training our law enforcement officers. Remember this? SPLC was training local law enforcement, brainwashing them in these communistic tactics, which essentially leads you to, you get to the point where, hey, if you're white, then you're a domestic terrorist. If you barbecue on the 4th of July, shoot fireworks, want to celebrate Independence Day, think the American Revolution is good and something to be celebrated, congratulations, you are a domestic terrorist suspect. To be treated like all J6ers eventually as soon as they're given the excuse or the next false flag that they want to run. It's incredible. Incredible. The indictment also claims that while getting paid by the SPLC, so we covered that. To carry out extremist activities, the indictment describes how a source broke into the National Alliance's headquarters in West Virginia in 2014 and stole approximately 25 boxes of documents, took them over state lines into North Carolina, and copied them before returning the originals. So what did they want these boxes? What did they want these documents for? Well, they wanted the documents to fundraise off of. In 2015, Barrich wrote an article allegedly based on the stolen materials from her group's Hate Watch section of the website. The article entitled Chaos at the Compound, which is right here, and she wrote it May 21st, 2015. You can't really see it very well because of the way I've got the screen cropped, but listen to this headline, though. You can see that. Allegations of embezzlement, money laundering, and tax fraud haunt the new chairman of National Alliance. So, I don't know if you guys were paying attention to the indictment that I was just reading or the report on the indictment, but embezzlement, kind of. Money laundering for sure. Money laundering it to the informant back into your personal bank account. Tax fraud, I'm sure there's some tax fraud in here somewhere. So what we have here is the very thing that she's writing about, the white supremacist group, she in fact is engaging in herself. Apparently. This is pretty funny. The indictment then describes how the SPLC tried to cover up who their informant was by paying a second informant $6,000 to take responsibility for the burglary. Barrich and the SPLC did not respond to requests for comment from the Post. So they did get a comment. So this is her. Okay, keep in mind, mental image in your head. Hold it. Hold the mental image. So they didn't get a comment from the SPLC or Barrich, but they did get a comment from the National Alliance chairman, William White Williams. And he says, quote, "I knew it was that fat, ugly hog, Heidi Barrich." Sorry. Quote, "I knew it was that fat, ugly hog, Heidi Barrich." That's the quote the Post got from the current chairman of the National Alliance, whose name is William White Williams, or otherwise known as William Williams. Sorry, it's funny to me. He's 78 years old. The Post from his home in East Tennessee. Okay, that's what he told the Post from his home in East Tennessee. He also confirmed the details of the indictment match what happened to the group. Quote, "I think some of those cluckers wanted to get out of the movement, and they went to the SPLC for help, but instead of helping them, the SPLC said, 'Why don't you just stay and get paid?'" he added. Barrich, by the way, again, classic intelligence operative, intel oligarchy. Why don't you just stay and get paid? I mean, classic corrupt FBI thing. I mean, that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing, and it's a buffer. It's a great buffer. It's a great shield to where the government isn't officially doing it. Because I think the government's behind all of this. Just so we're clear, I think the government is behind all of this. Some element of the government. Again, our government is not monolithic. Most governments are not. And so some form of the deep state, intel oligarchy, they're behind all this. And it's another buffer. It's an extra shield, right? An extra layer in the matrix. That's the SPLC. That's not us. So moving on to this report, Barrich had joined the SPLC in 1999, became a director of the Intelligence Project in 2012. She left in 2019 as part of a massive shakeup when many top brass departed amid accusations of racism and sexual harassment, with the group mainly being run by white people and black people in its lower ranks. I forgot about that scandal, but that's pretty funny if you think about it. Sounds like communism, doesn't it? Oh, well, this thing's not working out anymore. The people at the top. Alabama-based SPLC has been charged with wire fraud, bank fraud, money laundering, conspiracy for allegedly engaging in the active promotion of racist groups at the same time that the SPLC was denouncing the same groups on its website. Patel charged that far from using spies to dismantle the hate groups, the SPLC gave more than $4 million to keep promoting their ideologies, thus giving them something to point out and seek donors to fight against. The nonprofit has amassed some $800 million to do so. By 2013, the National Alliance, again, the National Alliance is the white supremacist group. By 2013, the National Alliance had effectively ceased to exist. That year, group chairman Erich Glebe, a former boxer nicknamed the Aryan Barbarian, had sent a letter to followers saying the group was ending its membership program that September, writing they were abandoning dues paying chapters in favor of a supporter-based structure. Membership had collapsed from 1,400 to around 20 people in less than a decade. Despite the internal chaos and decline, the following year, the SPLC began bolstering the group's public profile, writing nearly a dozen articles. So the organization is dwindling down to 20 people. SPLC starts writing about, this is a big threat, this organization. Give us money! Because they want to make good on their investment. Tax filings reviewed by the Post show Barrich earned $190,000 a year in salary and benefits from the SPLC before her departure. Mystery surrounds the identity of informant F9, who received $1.2 million in a total from the SPLC over 20 years. So again, that's where the $1.2 million. They have spent with this informant F9 $1.2 million over 20 years the group starts to dwindle, and I don't know, maybe the people in the group figured out that there were feds involved or informants from the SPLC. Anyway, starts to dwindle, and they're like, well, we've spent $1.2 million. We're gonna make this back. We're going to keep pumping this group as being a serious problem. So anyway, this is crazy. This is a crazy story. You can check it out. But I've got. There's got to be way more to this. And how many more organizations were they involved with, or they were doing the same thing with? And here's another question about this: how many more groups like the SPLC or other these leftist bastions of communism, really, but like publicly, the media, the government, they all say, oh, these are good groups. They're fighting racism. They're fighting for the common man. How many more of these groups are doing the exact same thing? The ADL comes to mind. How many more are doing the exact same thing, and on what kind of scale? Something to think about. Because I got to tell you, this is an intelligence op. This is using these groups just like we use the NGOs to overthrow countries like Ukraine and other places. By the way, I still can't. I did, on this topic of NGOs, and I don't mean to bore you guys, but I got on a couple of weeks ago, I got on the trail. I was trying to find this clip of the O'Reilly report from back in a long time ago, back during the Maidan Revolution. And I used AI to track this down, but I can't find the clip of it. And do you know why? It's really interesting. It's very difficult to find Fox News clips from that period ago. There used to be a great resource, Real Clear Politics video. It was this incredible library of Fox News clips. Breitbart would use those. They were embedded everywhere. But something happened a long time ago, and Fox News switched systems, or they did something. I can't remember exactly what it is, and all of these video clips basically got wiped off of the internet. But there was one video clip of Bill O'Reilly where he was interviewing Dennis Kucinich. Yes, that Dennis Kucinich who sued the government because he bit down on an unpitted olive and had dental work done. That actually happened. Dennis Kucinich did that. It's ridiculous, I know. He sued the government. Ohio congressman sued the government because he was at the cafeteria, bit down on an olive, somebody hadn't pitted it, and he broke his teeth. Okay. I mean, I feel for him. That's terrible, but that's the guy. Okay, so I don't agree with Dennis Kucinich on everything, but I remember it was one of my first red pill moments. Back when I was on radio, back during this Ukraine thing, and Dennis Kucinich goes on Bill O'Reilly's show, and I have found the text, I have found the transcript, but I can't find the video anywhere. It's gone. Just like all these other Fox News videos are gone, where Dennis Kucinich says to O'Reilly, look, this whole revolution is ridiculous, that we're funding these NGOs, the government's funding the NGOs, and it's just intelligence operation. It's an intelligence operation. That's what it is, and the segment ended so quickly. All right, Dad, all right, we got to go to break. And it was over, and I remember thinking that was so odd at the time. I was like, why, to me, it just, okay, well, so I think Kucinich is right on that point. I think that's exactly what we're doing, and that's the formula, that's the equation, and they weren't just doing it in Ukraine. They've been doing it here in this country for years, and now we have more evidence of it, in my opinion, and we're going to continue to expose it. And, if people don't go to jail, I know the SPLC, I don't think, is anyone going to actually go to jail? We'll have to wait and see. Does the organization just cease to exist? Let's hope so. But all the way up to the line to the Intel oligarchs, again, they have to go to jail. And if they don't, it's going to be a huge problem for all of us when they get back in power, if they get back in power, because they're coming. They're going to come after us in ways it's going to make January 6th look like a trip to Disney World if we don't see the accountability that we need. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Middle East. We're going to talk about the peace prospect. We're going to talk about the meltdown people like Mark Levin are having over the idea of peace. There's a memorandum of understanding. President Trump is going to be, apparently, according to reports, reading word for word. There are reports that we're not sharing that memorandum of understanding with anybody. Israel apparently has asked to see the memorandum of understanding, and we've said no. And I think that's because people, I think that's because the president wants peace to last as long as it can. He doesn't want people to sabotage it. Now you're hearing people say, oh, well, this has got to be a treaty, and it's got to go through the Senate. Yeah, you would love that, wouldn't you? You'd love to make this have to go through people like Lindsey Graham, who only want more war, regardless of what he says. So, no, it's not a treaty. This is a way to end the conflict, end the war, and you know what? We can talk about whether or not it was wise or not. I never was a fan of the war. Didn't support it while it was going on. Didn't want to do it, at all. But the fact of the matter is, now it looks like it's coming to an end, but it's extremely fragile. And there are people on the right who were excoriating anybody who was skeptical about going to another war in the Middle East that are now, they've totally turned on President Trump because they don't, number one, they don't like the peace prospect, but they also don't like the deal that he's cut. We're going to talk about that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. This is the Paul Harrell Program, broadcasting on LFA TV, and we're so glad you're with us, and we're going to be back here in just a moment.
For centuries, light has been used to heal. Awaken the body with Red 5.
The other things that we're seeing, more and more use for is even vascular issues. So one of the mechanisms that red light, near-infrared light, or Red 5 works is stimulation of the mitochondria and stimulation of nitric oxide production. So when nitric oxide is released in cells, it vasodilates cells. It reduces inflammation. It moves blood. It brings blood flow to areas. So folks that have issues with ulcers or burns or wounds, it can help stimulate increased blood supply, and you need blood to heal. So that can open up different avenues for peripheral artery disease, for neuropathic pain syndromes. And so that's one of the other areas for nerve injury or nerve pain that we can leverage this type of medicine.
My name is John, and this is my beautiful wife, Lori, and this is our Star Wars Ewok. His name is Scout, and we have Scout for about 11 years now, and we started noticing about 3 years ago, he started slowing down. He was unable to jump on the bed. He was kind of a little bit grumpier, and when my daughters, Macy and Mariah, would take him on walks, he would walk for about 30 yards, and then he'd lay down, and they'd carry him the rest of the way. So I heard about Pet Club 24/7 and about the products from a gentleman that I really trust and share a friendship with. And he mentioned to me that they have products that are going to help him with his arthritis, help him build his immune system. And I said, okay, no problem. Let's try them out. And I kid you guys not, within about 2 to 3 days, we started noticing a little difference. And then we took Scout on a walk probably about a week after we started using the products, the mush puppies, and he would walk the entire way. He would walk at least a mile, and it's just been completely amazing. He's a new dog. He's 11 years old, which is around 80 years in dog years, and he's just happy. He's more energetic. He's not the grumpy old man he used to be, and we're just so thankful. And it was perfect timing because we lost our boxer Yankee about 1.5 years ago, and it was really hard on us. So I'm so thankful for Pet Club 24/7 for the products that they offer. Imagine if you could have your best friend around one more day or one more week or even one more year. I'm so blessed and thankful that we were able to find this company and find these products for Scout. So thank you guys. Give it a shot. We appreciate you. God bless everyone.
The Paul Harrell Program.
Welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for being with us, broadcasting here on LFA TV. Want to make sure that you go and you like, subscribe to the LFA TV Rumble channel. If you are watching on the Paul Harrell Program YouTube channel, thank you. We're getting a little bit more comments. I appreciate the interaction as that channel slowly grows. But if you're watching, please subscribe to that channel and then hit the little bell to receive notifications. We would very, very much appreciate it. So J.D. Vance is making the rounds. He's got a new book out about his faith. But right now he's in the news because he seems to kind of be, he and obviously President Trump seem to be the promoters of this peace agreement, supposed peace agreement or memorandum of understanding that we have between Iran. And hopefully, I just saw a video before we came on where there was a ship that was able to move through the Strait of Hormuz. I believe it was an Iranian ship. So that's certainly a good sign for gas prices and everything else, and really just getting our economy back to where we want it to get to. The good sign in terms of just wanting to get back to domestic issues like defeating the communists that have infiltrated so many areas of our government and need to be dealt with. But here is humanevents.com with this story. Headline, Vance says Israel striking Beirut almost thwarted peace deal. So over the weekend, obviously, we were close to a deal. Everybody was talking about a deal. And then all of a sudden, we had these new strikes from Israel into Beirut. We've got the comments from President Trump on this we're going to talk to here. We're going to, or I wish we were talking to him, but we're going to listen to that here in a minute. Vice President Vance revealed on Sunday the Trump administration was concerned that Iran could retaliate against Israel after the strikes in Beirut, and it would have just derailed everything. And they asked Iran, they said, hey, don't retaliate, according to the reports. And Iran didn't. And now we have some sort of maybe the fragilest peace deal ever. Speaking about the lead up to the deal on Fox News Sunday, Vance said U.S. officials were worried Iran would launch a large-scale missile attack against Israel in response to the strikes. He said Iranian officials assured the United States during negotiations that they would not respond militarily and would instead move forward with the agreement. The comments are a recent sign that the Trump admin is frustrated with Israelis prior to signing. Prior to the signing of the Iran peace deal, Vance said Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had certainly gotten some things wrong as disagreements emerged between the two allies over developments in the region. So again, I'm going to reiterate what I said last week when we covered, after I came back from vacation, and we were covering how the president allegedly told Benjamin Netanyahu that he was, quote, an effing idiot. And he was criticizing the government of Israel. He was criticizing the political leader of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. And I said then what I'm going to reiterate now. Yes, it is possible to criticize the government of Israel without being an anti-Semite and without also being for Sharia law and Iran. Okay? Because that's exactly what President Trump has done now. Not once, but twice now in 2 weeks, because we've got him saying stuff today over at the G7, which is very similar, okay? But that's not what a lot of us were told. A lot of us were told that if you don't want the war in Iran and you don't want another war in the Middle East, you don't want another war that risks U.S. ground troops once again dying in the Middle East, and that you think that this is a ridiculous endeavor. And I know there's reason explanations for it. Right, I disagree with, but to try to steel man the argument, Iran having a nuclear weapon and glassing the Middle East, right? I understand that is a legitimate fear. I just happen to remember. I don't think I believe it as much as some people do, because I remember the weapons of mass destruction and all that other stuff, right? And I'm just sick of it, right? And I get there's some. I could be wrong there in terms of, well, just because you're sick of Americans' foreign policy doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong in this instance. I get it, but I still just respectfully disagree with it all, right? And on this show, I've stated that disagreement, and then we've also pivoted domestically and tried to cover, the positive things, but we've also covered the high gas prices. We've also covered, things that we disagree with, like the handling of the Epstein files and everything else. And so, yeah, admittedly, I am excited that this administration is now saying, hey, we're going to try to get a deal done. We're going to try to get peace done. We're going to try to, get the hot gates open, get the modern day version of Thermopylae. Let's end this, right? And the people that were championing it, the people that were saying, hey, anybody who's skeptical about this is against Trump or is against America, which is odd because we're talking about a foreign war. Those people are now criticizing President Trump because he's decided to end this thing, and he's also criticizing Israel while doing it. So, and then look, the next day things could be a 180, and we could be right back in this thing. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that just this blame casting and this anathematizing of anybody who decides to have an opinion that is not just exactly like we are a coalition party. There is a greater good. There is a lesser of two evils when it comes to formulating a political party's platform, and people are going to have issues that outrank other issues, and that's what it is. It's the Democrats that are the monolith for the most part, that if you step out of line, you're over, even on one issue. We're the party where it's going to be a battle. There are going to be disagreements. But to just totally anathematize them is what we've experienced over the last 6 months from a lot of these guys. Mark Levin, I'm talking about the Mark Levins of the world. And it's ridiculous. And you're seeing a total sea shift, when it comes to this stuff. Hang on one second. I got to reset this because I'm unprepared. Let me zoom in for you guys. All right, to the X accounts. We'll get some X stories. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance talking about the deal and President Trump. Listen to this.
Vice President Vance here to talk a little bit about what is in the Iran deal, the great peace deal that the President of the United States made last night. Number one, what this deal means is that the Straits of Hormuz are open immediately. You're already seeing oil and gas prices come down just over the past 24 hours. Number two, it ensures that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And we have to back up for a second and appreciate that what the president has done is completely decimated Iran's nuclear program. Now, this deal really has two pathways. On the one hand, if the Iranians make the long-term commitments never to rebuild, then they're going to be welcomed into the world economy. If, on the other hand, they try to rebuild that nuclear program, they're never going to have the resources in order to do so. So it's a win-win for the American people. We ensure Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon either way. And now it's really up to the Iranians. Over the next few months, we're going to see if they're serious about dismantling that program for the long term. If they do, the president has said, we want their country to be successful. But what we know is that our country is successful thanks to great presidential leadership and a lot of good decisions. Thank you, guys.
All right, J.D. Vance, a few of your comments here. Patriot 8989 says Trump is decentralizing oil. Now we can compete with China and have manufacturing again. And he also said, or she said, I don't know, he or she, sorry, I don't know. Everyone who disagrees with the Iran war does not understand oil. Okay, I mean, that's certainly possible. And I'm not saying here that this was only about what we were told it was about. Yeah, it's quite possible that this is about, shifting the resources of the global economy and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's entirely possible. That's not really my point, though. My point is this, and we're going to get to this here in a minute because I've got all of these tweets pulled. But there's a contingent of people online right now that are trashing this deal, and they are also. Well, I don't even know how to describe it other than totally unrealistic about what the Iranians' cards are, what Israel's cards are, what our cards are. And we're not willing to play the card 10,000 American soldiers are going to have to die, to get some sort of, to get to the part where we basically have Iraq 2.0 and sectarian civil wars for the next 10, 20 years. Okay, we have that card, but we're not playing that card, right? So we're not playing that card. So then the only other card to get what some of these people want, like the Mark Levins of the world, is to nuke Iran, which if we did that, would essentially destroy this country eventually. I think in so many ways. We talked on Friday about we're always competing for the moral high ground. on the world stage, folks, at that point, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's just people are not even going to care anymore. It would be disastrous for, even the people that want American empire to continue the way it has continued. At that point, it's a disaster on so many different levels. And so it's strange to me reading some of these comments and how unrealistic they are. It's like I don't know what you want to do. The topography of the Strait of Hormuz is the topography of the Strait of Hormuz. It is what it is. We've known about this for forever, right? The topography of Iran and those sheer cliffs it is what it is. So again, and it's so many of these people that are dissatisfied with it, they won't come out and say we need to sacrifice 5,000 U.S. soldiers to try to take this. Or, Lindsey Graham saying, Carg Island, we took Iwo Jima. Yeah, 30,000 casualties. So no. And that's what I'm seeing right now, and it's just ridiculous. Nick Sorter reporting President Trump is waiting to release the full text of the deal with Iran until after it's fully executed on Friday. And the reason is simple, he says, because warmongers will do everything in their power to sabotage it. They're already kicking and screaming, don't relent 47. As of this broadcast, it is 3:48 Central Time here in Arkansas. As of this broadcast, I don't think the agreement has been released. And again, according to reports, Benjamin Netanyahu is asking for it, and he's not getting it. And that is because they will. At this point, how many times we've been close to peace? And now all of a sudden, this isn't about Iran anymore. It's about getting more land in Lebanon. And because of Hezbollah and because Iran runs Hezbollah. Okay, well then they go all the way into Beirut. And by the way, the president is going to echo these sentiments here in a minute because I got the clip. Here's Mark Levin. So now Jack Posobiec, Jack Posobiec has he was the one that posted this human events story about J.D. Vance. And he's been talking about how, there is this rift between. Let's see. Do I have any Posobiec tweets up here? Let me see if I can't find that. That's that. Let me see. I'm sorry. I'm getting out of order here. But anyway, Mark Levin is now saying Posobiec, I guess, is anti-Semitic. What is he saying? Listen to this.
Oh, Jack Posobiec. Oh, the great Jack Posobiec. Sounds like he works for the High Wire Act. Hey, there's Posobiec up there. Who's Posobiec? Yeah, Posobiec. If that is his name. Over at Turning Point USA, I love them. They really need to clean this up. They really do. They should not have these slime balls. Embrace neo-Nazism. Embrace individuals from overseas. I believe this guy's from Sudan or Syria, this guy who he embraces, Maurice or whatever his name is, with his horrific statements. They should embrace people who prop up Iran and prop up Hamas. They should get rid of these people. They should clean house of these people because they're going to drive them down. Jack.
So he's upset at Jack Posobiec because he's essentially, being critical of Israel, so that automatically must mean that you're a neo-Nazi. Amy, CM 1019. You're not so much a fan of Posobiec. I understand. I'm not gonna. This is a family show. But Laura, let's see. Laura Lynn 74. Levin is off the deep end. Yeah, absolutely. But it just goes to show you, like, he was singing President Trump's praises and everybody's praises up until the moment we get a peace deal, and it's because this is a fill in the blank, but it just to me seems like there isn't peace is not. Somebody said peace derangement syndrome. Peace isn't the option here. They want Iran gone. They just don't want Iran around, and I get it. We can all say here, in a perfect world, yeah. But it's a very complicated government. It's a very complicated system. I mean, the theocracy aside, it's so decentralized that it's a miracle that we even gotten to the memorandum of understanding because honestly, and just doing very limited research, it's incredibly hard to figure out really who is even in charge, and they've done that. They've done it that way on purpose, and so you either basically make it your own real estate, which is going to cost American lives, or you're going to nuke it, or you debilitate it to such a point that it descends into sectarian violence, and then you can't ever get the strait open because of the drones and things like that. X Machine over on LFA. Mark Levin whines like a leftist. Yeah, he sure does. He sure does. Now, this was Vice President Vance on Sean Hannity's show last night.
Further, number 2, it ensures that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And number 3, it does go and say, look, if the Iranians are willing to change their ways, if they're willing to behave like a normal country, stop trying to build a nuclear weapon, stop trying to fund terrorism all over the Middle East, then we are willing to actually fundamentally transform our relationship with them. That's what the president has offered. Now, of course, we would need to verify that. We would need to see real progress and real action.
They
not
know
just
that's
words.
part of the deal?
Absolutely. It's written right there in the agreement, Sean. And here's the thing. Yes, you're right. Sometimes when, information about this deal will leak out, you'll have somebody on a propaganda channel in that country, in Iran, who will say something that isn't true. I think it's sort of expected. It frustrates me too, but it's expected that some Yahoo is going to say something about the deal further. Number 2, it ensures that Iran will never have a nuclear.
All right, so there's this idea that $300 billion or whatever. But I don't think that's true. But what I do think is true is, if this is a real effort at peace and, there is this agreement, then at some point the sanctions are going to be lifted and they're going to get money because of it, right? I mean, if you lift the sanctions, the country is going to become wealthier. The whole point of sanctions is to make the country poorer. Okay, so apparently this is crazy. Like, which it's not. It's not crazy at all. If you're going to have peace, you're going to have to allow them to. You're going to lift sanctions if they're not going to have the nukes. I mean, that's part of the negotiation. But what does that mean? Well, it would mean then that eventually they can rebuild their country. And this is an untenable situation, apparently, for some in the neocon war party. Which, so essentially we have to live in this perpetual, this perpetual war posture where, domestically here at home, America just gets neglected all for this conflict. And I think President Trump knows this, and he's over it. I think he's absolutely over it. The Israeli Telegram channel, there's some people have been looking at these Israeli Telegram channels, and because of this deal, somebody named Sina Tusi says Israeli Telegram channel with 180,000 members is mourning and in fury. Quote, God will curse Trump, the first war in Israel's history that we lost. We have to admit the facts. Iranians taught America a lesson. Hopefully in 10 years we won't be dependent on American idiots. They've also some Telegram channels, they've said some really terrible things about the tragic of a B-2 bomber that exploded on takeoff. People are celebrating that who are wanting more war in the Middle East. That brings me to this. President Trump publicly rebukes Israel for almost torpedoing Iran deal with vicious strikes in Beirut. Quote, without me, there would be no Israel. Bibi has to be more responsible. I want you to listen to this audio clip. And as you're listening to it, I want you to think about all of the people. And granted, it is a potpourri on the right. And I'm sorry to use these analogies, but you guys know what potpourri is, That's what we are. We're a coalition party, and there are people that say things I disagree with. There are people that say things I agree with, and there's people that say things that I disagree with and agree with. Some, it's all in the mix. As you listen to these comments that President Trump is making at the G7, I want you to think of all of the people we have been told to never listen to again, because they were skeptical about this war. They were skeptical about entire buildings being destroyed in Gaza, where every woman, all the children, all of the women, They're all human shields. Every single one of them were used as human shields in an effort where there was no accountability at all. I just want you to think about all the people that were upset with what happened in Gaza, that still thought October 7th was bad, but were saying, hey, this is too far. Hey, we don't need to go to war in Iran. Hey, all of the people who we were told over the last 6 months, that person's an anti-Semite, or that person is anti-Trump because they're not supporting this. I want you to now listen to what President Trump says at the G7. Take a listen.
Mr. President, what are the expectations for Israel? Can this deal survive if Israel attacks Lebanon?
It can, and I consider that the minor war. Iran's a big one, but we have that a little pinprick out there that constantly rears its head, and that's Hezbollah. And, I was very responsible for Syria, and the man that's running Syria now is a person that I put there along with President Erdogan and some others. He's done an amazing job of pulling it together. He's not a Boy Scout, but he's done an amazing job of pulling it together. And he is very good with Hezbollah, does not like them. And I'll tell you what, Israel's fighting Hezbollah too long, and too many people are being killed. And you don't have to knock down an apartment house every time you're looking for somebody, because there are a lot of people in those apartment houses, and they're not all Hezbollah, that I can tell you. And I suggested to Israel to let Syria take care of Hezbollah. Because to be honest with you, I think they do a better job of doing it. And I didn't like Syria. I didn't like where 2 hours before we're signing the agreement that there was an attack in Lebanon, in Beirut. It was right in. It wasn't like in the southern side, and it was in Beirut. I did not like that. I let them know that. I didn't like it, not at all. But I think that Syria, he's pulled that country together amazingly quickly. He's very capable, and he's been very good for me. He's protected everything that I've asked for. He's done.
A couple of things here. This has been the criticism of the way, certainly the way Israel conducted the war in Gaza, which was just destroy the whole building and kill everybody in it, because they're all human shields. President Trump saying the same thing, essentially, but they're now doing it in Beirut, in Lebanon. And by the way, and this is why, my cards are on the table, okay? They're Christians in Beirut. They're Christians in Lebanon. And so, as a fellow Christian, I think the murder of Christians in an effort to go after Hezbollah is really bad. Actually, I'm going to frown upon that as a fellow Christian. President Trump saying, he describes Hezbollah, by the way, in that this is going to make the pro-war crowd absolutely insane. He describes Hezbollah as a pinprick. Now think about that. That is a very curious word that the president uses in describing Israel's problem with Hezbollah. He's describing it as a pinprick, meaning not a grave wound, meaning what you're doing, taking down entire buildings in Beirut, is not a measured, appropriate response. President Trump is calling it a pinprick. I mean, it's bad, but it is not a measured response. It is not a justified response, taking down an entire apartment building, because you're killing innocent people in another country, a sovereign country, Lebanon. And again, he points out that they're not bombing the South Lebanon, where they're, towards the border, where there's a lot of, where more Hezbollah activity. No, they're bombing the capital of Lebanon, Beirut, and taking out entire blocks. And this isn't the first time. What happened over the weekend is not the first time that this happened. I mean, it happened, months ago. And only thing it does is put us in a position where it makes peace with a very belligerent country, Iran, where, it's very difficult, very unorganized by design country, Iran, very difficult to figure out. Because you may make a deal with a foreign minister, as we've seen, but you haven't made a deal with the Revolutionary Guard. And so you've got our partner, our ally, who just keeps going and doesn't listen because they don't want peace. So if you're in a war with an ally that has two totally different goals, you're going to have a very hard time. And that's what we're seeing here. And we're seeing the President of the United States, Donald Trump, echoing this problem. Maybe not in exactly the same ways that some people do on X that are, but he's that are maybe more forceful, but certainly he's echoing the fact that, hey, this is a problem for us if we actually want peace. So it goes on. We're going to continue with this. Listen to the rest of what he says. By the way, I will say I learned something about Syria. I mean, obviously that this is the first time I've ever heard President Trump describe him putting in power the guy in Syria who, again, is no Boy Scout bad guy, right? But apparently has brought order to that situation, which is very interesting. That we could go down the whole Bashar al-Assad rabbit trail sometime. Anyway, listen to more of this.
And if Israel can't do the job without killing everyone else, he'll do the job. Syria will do the job. And I've asked for, he's done. He's pulled that country together amazingly quickly. He's very capable. And he's been very good for me. He's protected everything that I've asked for, he's done. And if Israel can't do the job without killing everyone else, he'll do the job. Syria will do the job.
Are you frustrated with Netanyahu, sir?
No. We had a great relationship. We're talking about some end details. I didn't like that he did an attack based on there was a very minor little thing with some drones that were released, and he ends up doing I saw that attack. I saw where that bomb went. Did you see what happened? That was a vicious, that was too much.
Not proportional.
You can do too much also. But we've had a very effective relationship. Without the United States, there would be no Israel. Without me, there would be no Israel, because no other president was willing to do what I did. I've had a great relationship with Bibi, but now Bibi has to be more responsible with respect to Lebanon. Lebanon used to be a great country. It was a country where you had professors, doctors, lawyers. The great intellect was in Lebanon. Now it's terrible. I would say of all countries...
Weirdly enough, I didn't know this until Israel started attacking Lebanon. I did a little research. Do you know that in the country of Lebanon, okay, and granted, Beirut did used to be a lot more like the Paris of the Middle East before the Muslims immigrated and took over, right? Okay? Like, that is true. But it is also true that a lot of people don't know this, that in the government of Lebanon, you have to have a Sunni Muslim in power, a Shia Muslim in power, and a Christian in power. And I think it's like the president, prime minister, and like House of Parliament or Speaker of the House or something like that, where the president has to be a Christian, the prime minister has to be a Muslim, and then the other one has to get, But yeah, the president of Iran, I think, has to be a Christian. The president of Lebanon, I think, has to be a Christian by law. And, we're over here in the West, and I don't think any of us even know that. Most of us don't even know that. And most of us never heard, back to the whole Gaza thing to the South, most of us had no idea that in Gaza there were, historic Christian churches that had been functioning and allowed to worship there for, 1,000 years. And they were totally destroyed. Totally destroyed. A few of the comments here in the LFA chat. X Machine writes, the Israel bombing on Beirut is bad. And if they break the ceasefire, which I do believe Iran and Israel will somehow F this up, America should not intervene again. We did our job. We're done. Just keep the oil flowing. We need the Strait open. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. But I agree. I think I generally agree with that sentiment. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I wasn't for the conflict in the first place. But walking away at this point might be what needs to happen, but we'll see. More on this audio clip. This is a wild audio clip. This is the realest I've seen President Trump in a long time. Does anyone else out there feel that way? This is kind of the just kind of the realest, most genuine version of President Trump I've seen in a long time.
Been treated the worst, and they can't defend themselves, and they have Hezbollah, which is a problem for them. So no, I'm not happy with the way Israel has handled themselves with Lebanon and with Hezbollah. They should have been able to do the job faster. It just goes on forever, and when that happens, it throws a negative light on the big deal, and that's the deal with Iran. So when you ask me about Bibi, an unbelievable relationship. But Israel would have been blown up a long time ago had I not gotten involved. Two things I did. I terminated the Iran nuclear deal. Barack Hussein Obama sold out Israel for Iran. He went to Iran. He sold them out. How anybody can vote for this guy or the party, the Democrats I call them, because they're dumb. They're dumb people. That's number one. How anybody can vote for them. And the second was the B-2 bombers, just totally destroyed. So they had the right there, the JCPOA. I watch these politicians. I watched a Senator Reid that nobody ever heard of the other day. Well, this deal is the same as the deal Barack Obama. No. This deal is a wall to a nuclear weapon. His deal was a road to a nuclear weapon. My deal, they can't have a nuclear. They get blown up. If they have a nuclear weapon, they get blown up. In his deal, they were allowed to have a nuclear weapon. And in all fairness to Bibi, I remember very well, Bibi came to Washington and he begged Obama not to make that deal. And Obama was on the side of Iran, not Israel. And he made the deal. That deal was a disaster. I terminated that deal. And if I didn't terminate, and it was very tough after the termination, and if I didn't do that, Howard knows better than anybody. If I didn't terminate that deal, I believe that Israel wouldn't be here right now.
Is there any more? Hang on.
And the second one was what we did with respect to the nuclear dust, as I call it, right? We blew it up. The mountain collapsed on top. You can't get to it. And they were 2 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it on Israel, and I hate to say it, and probably the rest of the Middle East, because they had all those missiles aimed at the Emir, at Saudi Arabia, at UAE, at Kuwait, at Bahrain. I mean, the biggest surprise in this whole thing, I didn't think you guys would, I thought he would aim at Israel. But he didn't aim at Israel, much less. He aimed at your countries. And actually, that was a mistake for them because it brought us, these countries, in particular the 5 countries, it brought us, I mean, he even hit Turkey once. I never understood it. Nobody's going to understand it. That's the problem. They're totally irrational people. And those people are now gone. And I think Iran has rational leadership now.
Quote, I think Iran has rational leadership now. So for whatever reason, President Trump thinks Iran has rational leadership now. And the pro-war wing of the Republican Party is not happy. Laura Loomer, who, by the way, is really mad at Tulsi Gabbard, she's calling the revelations we talked about last Friday about the biolabs. She says it's Russian disinformation. So she's doing the whole Russia thing. But she's very upset with President Trump saying that he's upset with Bibi, or Bibi's got to be more restrained and hasn't handled the situation, is killing too many people, not getting the job done. All these criticisms that, again, other people have been saying this entire time and have been told to, have been anathematized. Sitting next to the Qataris, President Trump spoke about the current Iranian leadership. He described them as very rational people. They are nice to deal with. They are strong and smart people. They are not radicalized, and I'm looking to help their country. She says they are loyalists to the Ayatollah who chant death to America, who is giving President Trump tainted pro-Islamic intel. Iran just plotted to assassinate Ivanka Trump. How is that not radical? Now, remember that happened right before we were about to get peace the last time. Do you remember that? That was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. We were about to get peace again, and right before the announcement that the peace was close, oh no! The Iranians did the one thing that would get their country possibly nuked and their civilization ended, which was trying to assassinate the president's daughter. How convenient. Ooh, how convenient. So she's not happy. Not happy at all. Jenna Ellis isn't happy. She responds, he can't possibly actually believe this, when Vice President J.D. Vance says we are hearing from both Iranian hardliners and political leaders that the past 47 years of hostility with the United States have been a mistake and that it is time to turn a new page. Do you remember when everybody gave President Trump all of the hate when he crossed over into North Korea and shook hands with Kim Jong-un? Now, the hate he got was from the leftists. Because, see, a lot of people, speculate that the whole North Korea thing was essentially an intelligence op as a gun to the head of the rest of the world. As a gun to the head of the rest of the world. To be used however it needs to be used, for whatever excuse, to fund whatever. Maybe Iran is the same way. And who knows? And I'm being ridiculously optimistic here. I get this. Who knows? Maybe President Trump has cracked the nut. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know if this for a fact, but it seems like people like this or Mark Levin, they're not going to be satisfied until we drop a nuclear bomb on Iran. Or we lose 30,000 troops in securing the new reality, which is some sort of Iranian sectarian civil war. Here we go. R.N. McIntyre. The neocons are not subtle. They hate Trump and Vance as they always did. I hope everyone who told MAGA to follow these idiots into disaster realize how much damage they did while attacking people who saw this coming as disloyal. Here's a guy on Fox News with Brett Baer by the name of Benjamin Domenech, and this is what he thinks about the idea of this peace deal.
This president has been, I think he's been the best foreign policy president of my lifetime. I think that he's been incredibly bold. He has used American power to restore our sovereignty, to protect our interests, and to look out for the American people. And I think it was a gutsy call for him to go into Iran when he did. He didn't have to do it, but he did it. He thought it was the right time. And I still think that was the right decision. This deal and everything that we know about it, to the degree that it is being spun in public by this, and behind the scenes by the administration, everything about this deal seems bad to me. It all seems bad. It all seems like a setback. It doesn't seem like it meets any of the measures that the president actually put out there of his goals when it came to this conflict. And look, at some point, this Republican Party needs to decide which kind of foreign policy it's going to have. Is it going to be an America First foreign policy, one that is bold, that uses American power in key moments decisively in order to affect what it wants to achieve? Or are we going to just backslide into being some kind of hillbilly Obama kind of GOP? That is not something that is acceptable to me. It should not be acceptable to Republicans, and it should not be acceptable to any conservative who is...
So the idea of peace... So it really, and this is the cards that you have. Do a ground troop invasion, which I don't support, nobody would support. It would totally fracture the entire country because we would take heavy losses. Okay, so you do that, or you can drop a nuke, okay, and totally, for forever, like for forever, America would essentially lose any sort of moral claim of moral superiority to do anything ever again on the global stage. And even in our own country, it would be one of the most demoralizing things that you could think of, given where the status quo was, given how the war kicked off in the first place. Okay, not to mention the millions of Christians that live in Iran, by the way. those are your options. It's either those things or some form of peace. Some form of peace where, yes, Iran remains intact. I'm sorry the world isn't the way you wish it would be, but it is what it is. And so instead of, what is their end goal is an absolute catastrophe. I don't even know know how in their minds they're just going to continue down this path, because I'm trying to game it out, and all I see is total disaster. And also a total revolt of voters back here at home if they keep going down this path. Because it's no longer in the abstract. Would you support getting rid of Iran? A lot of Americans on the right were like, well, yeah, I hear they're evil. I've been told they're evil, and they are evil. And, yeah, I'd love to get rid of them. Okay, would you support that if it meant, $5 gallon gasoline, inflation goes through the roof, you can't afford your groceries, and, oh, by the way, the infrastructure here continues to crumble, the IRS still comes after you. In the abstract, it may be fine, but when you actually do it, you lose a lot of people that way, because that's what people actually care about. They care about, can you put gas in your car? Okay? So I don't even know where these people are, but the larger point is they turn on Trump like that. They turn on Trump like that. And, and to the other side's point, yeah, there's a ton of people that turned on Trump when he got into the war. Yeah, 100%. That they were saying, because they were like, well, I disagree with what he did there. That was my number one issue, and so we'll go to war with the Trump administration and criticize literally everything he does all the time. Those people existed too, but the masks are coming off. And speaking of masks, I do have to say, I'm glad that the people that they have, coming out are actually, it's their real face, or at least it looks like their real face. It's not like that Admiral so-and-so, Admiral Flaps, who is clearly wearing a mask. Again, I finished the Mission Impossible arc. I've been watching these Mission Impossible movies, and I'm telling you, go back and watch the first Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise, and where Tom is going undercover as a politician. And Tom is like talking to John Voight. He's saying, like, I'm going in as Waltzer, Senator Waltzer. And he's like, yeah. And John Voight says, yeah, he's one of ours. He's fly fishing, but you'll be at the embassy in Prague. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's like right there in front of your face. While you got Admiral, whatever his name was. And he comes down Stitchfield. I wasn't wearing a, I won't even address. I'm not even going to tug on my face. Total theater, folks. Way more than you want to admit. Lights, camera, action. This is crazy. And by the way, what was that Admiral advocating for? Admiral Flaps? More war with Iran. Keep going. Keep pushing. Here is a guy by the name of, I guess this is an Israeli, saying that Lindsey Graham was right 10 years ago. These are the responses you're getting from people on X as a result of the piece. Quote, if we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed, and we will deserve it. On a dime. Then you've even got, you've got Axios piling on, right? Axios is piling on and is saying, the intelligence community is saying that Trump's plan for peace is unreasonable. You can't trust the Iranians. Then you've got radio talk show host Eric Erickson calling this American surrender. American surrender. Again, on this issue, you step out of line. You don't allow Israel to get the total destruction that it wants, and it's American surrender instead of maybe it's just prudence. You ever think of that? Maybe. I mean, we've been at this since February. We've been at this for a long time. And we can talk about all we want. Oh, their military is decimated. Okay, fine. If your military is decimated, then it should be no problem. Obviously, Iran is not. I mean, yes, they're wounded. Yes, they've taken a lot of losses. I mean, yes, we've killed their leadership. But again, they're totally decentralized and chaotic. So obviously, it's a lot easier said than done. There's obviously more missiles. There's obviously more drones. There's obviously an Iranian Revolutionary Guard that is like Their entire lives, for generations, they've been told, one day we'll get to fight the Americans. And again, you're dealing with high IQ people on average, not your average, inbred, Middle Eastern or somewhere, right? So it's obviously not. It's about what it's the cards, and part of the cards that Iran was dealt is something called topography in the Strait of Hormuz. Carlos Abadi Rubio must resign, needs to resign. He can no longer serve this administration over this deal. Again, Eric Erickson, we know the Iran deal is a capitulation by the United States because neither the vice president nor the president are willing to release the text. No, actually, not necessarily. I mean, a capitulation, as far as Israel's concerned and the neocons are concerned, that's the way they're going to frame it, 100%, because they don't want peace. I don't think there's any world where they actually want peace without Iran being removed from the chessboard entirely, which we're talking a lot of lives. We're talking a lot of bloodshed, and you're talking about the bloodshed of American soldiers, a lot of them. Another Eric Erickson. Trump has surrendered to Iran. Those who kill Americans love this deal. So now we're getting, if you like the prospect of peace, you love dead Americans. When it's the opposite that's true. Because if we got into a ground war, there would be scores of dead Americans. And then you got that guy, Dominich, that wants to say we need a true America first foreign policy. I'm sorry, that is not an America first foreign policy. Here we go, Mark Levin. Appalling. They fought beside us. Now we celebrate talks with the enemy? And the enemy knows more than our ally? This is shocking. So this is the report that Netanyahu at a press conference said yesterday, we still don't know what the agreement will be. The memorandum of understanding is under lock and key. President Trump says he'll release it after they sign it on Friday. So Mark Levin is appalling. He's appalled. This goes to show that there is a breakdown in trust between the United States and Israel. And I think President Trump has said that. I think that's obvious. We just played the 6-minute clip of him basically saying that. And the unspoken, what he's not saying is, hey, if we put the agreement out, all of the people that only want war and they don't want peace, they're going to find a way to derail it. And that's what's going on right now. There are people trying to derail this at all costs. Mike Crispy, this is very disloyal and sad behavior from Mark Levin. President Trump promoted and supported him, and the minute he doesn't get what he wants, he throws a temper tantrum like a child. Trump knows better than you, Mark. I trust his deal, and you should too. Shut up. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. We're not guaranteed that this deal is going to be great. We're not guaranteed that this deal is going to actually maintain peace. But there's people trying to stop what's going on. And I'll characterize it, the way I would characterize it is, I think for the most part, there's been several outlets that have reported on this. The United States was oversold how easy this would be. This is not Venezuela. And this is us trying to reset the board. This is us trying to, figure out and spin it however you want. I don't really care because I know that if we do have peace and we get rid of this Middle East fatigue, we can focus on what's going on domestically. And obviously, you have to also mention the midterms coming up here in just a few months. So CBS News, the Iranians are saying that they're going to have access to $300 billion. Here's more from J.D. Vance. Let's listen to this.
Walk through some of this. The Iranians are saying that they're going to have access to a $300 billion reconstruction fund. True or false?
Well, Ed, that's the sort of thing they could have access to, funded by the Gulf Coast Coalition, so long as they honor their end of the obligation. I think that one of the things you're going to see, Ed, and people have to be skeptical of this, is that the hardliners in the Iranian system will overemphasize the benefits that Iran gets while underemphasizing all the things that they have to concede and all the things they have to provide in order to get these benefits. So we absolutely are open to the Gulf Coast countries investing in in the reconstruction of Iran, but only if Iran ends their nuclear program, ends their enriched stockpile of material, and is really open to an inspections and enforcement regime that gives the American people confidence they're never going to have a nuclear weapon. So
there you go. This is exactly what I said earlier. The United States isn't giving that money, if it even happens at all. But again, if you're trying to normalize, by the way, I'll also say this, and this terrifies the deep state and the globalists as well, because what is essentially being discussed here is the normalization of relations with Iran. And do you know what you have? If you have normalization of relations with Iran, the prospects of normalizing relations with Russia become, technically speaking, much easier to do. And that is something, their old boogeyman, Russia, based on the 1980s fear, Red Dawn, Rocky IV, that no longer exists in the same way that it did, is untenable to the intel oligarchy. It's untenable to the deep state, the globalists. They don't like that. They don't want that. A normalization of relationship between Russia and the U.S. makes an incredible amount of sense. If you want to talk about what makes good sense for America, that certainly would economically. And I'm telling you, the people, they're going to do everything they can to say, if this deal holds, it basically will unlock a normalization relationship with Russia, and it will also lead to the end of the hostilities between Ukraine, which is something I said from the beginning of this. For the last year, I've wondered if you have peace in the Middle East, meaning this was back before we started the war, if you had peace where, you know, there wasn't going to be any escalation in the Middle East, I said, then you're going to have peace with Russia and Ukraine. And so now we've had the skirmish, the conflict, the special military operation or whatever. You know, you've had that. Now will it lead to peace? It very well could. It very well could. Could be a game changer. Could be a game changer. All right, we're going to reset here, take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back here in just a moment here on LFA TV. Thanks so much for watching.
For centuries, light has been used to heal. Awaken the body with Red Vive.
I had 5 units that I purchased for the practice right out of the chute. Well, those went the first week that I got back to Houston. So then we ordered another 5 and then another 5. And I think over the next, 6 to 8 weeks, we had ordered like 35 units. And they're gone. They're still gone out of the practice. So we're excited about moving more of these units for our patients because they need them. And so when you bring in new technology and your staff's thinking, oh, this is another thing that I need to handle during the day, I think it's a good idea to give them a little incentive. And I do it as a team. So if one person does well, the whole team does well. So they all support each other. And they got really excited about that. They love it. They'll bring a unit in, turn it on, put it on the patient's foot or leg, and they'll tell the patients, be sure to talk to Dr. Parker about red light therapy. And the patient will say, red light therapy, yeah, I've heard of that, And so I'll walk in and my nurse is she'll tell me, I've spoken to Mrs. Jones about this red light therapy, and she's really excited about it. So Red Vive has been fantastic for our bottom line.
This is our family dog, Bubba. He is a Shorty Jack Russell, and he brings a lot of love and laughter into our home. We just want to thank Pet Club for making healthy food and treats for our animals. Bubba has been on Pet Club food for a little over a year now. He really likes the Sequoia dry food, and then I put a scoop of the Sequoia wet dog food in there with some hot water and stir it up, and he absolutely loves it. And he likes the mush puppies, but his ultimate favorite is the antlers. Those keep him busy for a really long time, and he really likes them. It makes us feel really good that the food and treats that we give him have healthy ingredients in them because we want him to be around for a really long time. Our previous dog was a lab, and His name was Titus, and we fed him in bulk, and we would just get his food from the big box grocery stores. And unfortunately, that food wasn't very healthy for him, and he ended up getting cancer and passing away. So we didn't want to make that mistake with Bubba. So we were really fortunate to find Pet Club and find some really healthy food for him to eat. So we would just like to thank Pet Club, and we just really appreciate the healthy food that they make so we can keep this guy around as long as we can.
Why is Red Vibe different? What sets it apart? What sets us apart from the standard red light panels? This is a medical grade device, and what that means is the red light bulbs and the near infrared bulbs have very specific wavelengths. If you think about the wavelength as the medicine, the 635, the 670, the 810, the 850, those were specifically chosen because those are the most powerful effectors of the cells. So those specific wavelengths, when they get into our body, when they affect our tissue, they spike energy production, they help with nerve pain control, they increase stem cell counts. There's very specific mechanisms that those specific wavelengths work at, and that's the medicine. So if you think of, say, medicine as an Advil or a specific steroid or a blood pressure medication, the wavelength is the medication. The other part of that, whenever you take a medication, is dose. Right? So you have the medication. So if you take 1 milligram of Advil, and the average dose of an Advil is 200 milligrams to 800 milligrams, it's not going to work. That doesn't mean the medicine's bad. It just means you didn't take enough. Right? And so even if you have the right wavelengths, first you have to have the right medicine, and then you have to have the right dose. And to have the right dose, you have, in light therapy, you have to have enough energy. So you have to have a powerful bulb. The LED bulbs, or light emitting diodes, have a specific wavelength, and that wavelength is the medicine. And the wavelengths that have been studied and published on that are the most powerful in affecting healing and the changes that we want to see with our bodies and our health are the 635 wavelength, the 670, 810 nanometer wavelength, and 850 nanometer wavelength. Those are all going to affect the mitochondria, the cytochrome C oxidase, and affect those powerful long-term changes and affect that downstream pathways. And that's what you get with Red Vibe devices. The highest efficacy, the best wavelengths, concentrated to help your health.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us. Let's see here. We got a little bit more fallout to get to here. Jack Posobiec. We covered this earlier that he has drawn the criticism, ire of talk radio host Mark Levin, and this is why. The reason Mark Levin is now calling for Turning Point USA to fire Jack Posobiec. Odd thing to demand, but it's because Jack is saying things like this. Remember how hard the neocons attacked anyone who didn't want a full-scale war with Iran? Now they're attacking President Trump's deal just as much. These people are two-faced and untrustworthy. Now the reason, and I've heard this before, because when I get off the air here every day on the ride home, I generally have talk radio on, my local talk radio station here in Northeast Arkansas, which I used to be on every day. The Mark Levin's who's playing, and so I listen to Mark Levin on the way home, except for Fridays when I turn it to 40s Junction XM satellite radio, 40s Junction, because for whatever reason I really haven't. I have found that I don't listen to a lot of music, never really have, which is odd because I'm actually a musical person, right? I'm talented in that area, but I listen to a lot of soundtracks. I love music that actually doesn't have words, right? Obviously, I love hymns, sing those in church, but it's weird. I think one of the reasons I hate music the way in its current iterations, because I just feel like the lyrics are just so life-sucking. I just feel like they, for the most part, are not good. And so this XM radio station, 40s Junction, which is like somewhere in the 70s, channel 70 something. Anyway, it's just incredible, just like how it's just chill. Yeah, and some of it's really corny, some of it's very interesting musically, but it's just like it's something you can listen to, and I don't feel like there's a demon trying to suck my soul out of my body. Does that make sense to you guys? And I'm being dramatic there, but there's a lot of truth to that in terms of the music we listen to and what we're putting in front of our bodies, what we're putting in our bodies, what our ears are hearing. But anyway, so on Fridays, I'm like, it's the weekend. I'm checking out of politics. Time for some 1940s music, and it's really good. But Monday through Thursday on the way home, I listen to Mark Levin because I want to know what he's saying. And I have caught enough of his show to know that he really hates the word neocon. He thinks that if somebody uses the word neocon, they are anti-Semitic. He said this multiple times. I've heard it. He says that when you use the word neocon, you are actually saying the word Jew or Jews. This is what he says over and over. So when Jack Posobiec says the neocons, Mark Levin says, you're talking about the Jews then, huh? You're talking about the Jews. You're calling the Jews two-faced and untrustworthy. That is why Mark Levin is now targeting Jack Posobiec, just so you know. Har2 says, I agree, Paul. That's why I listen to Christian music. Yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of people listen to Christian music, but I don't really listen to Christian music per se. I don't even know what the current latest Christian music is, right? Because, and I know there's good stuff out there, but it seems like in the past, I don't know, maybe it's my generation, when something kind of happened in my generation where we ended up, so I'm 41. Okay, so I'm about to be 42 years old, and I grew up Baptist. and I'm grateful for that. I came to faith in Christ as a Baptist. I'm now a Presbyterian, a confessional Presbyterian, not the kind of Presbyterian that has rainbow pride flags out in front of your in front of the churches. Not that kind, but. Something happened, though, when I was growing up. When I started, my earliest memories of going to a Baptist church, it was, very traditional in terms of we had a hymn book. We sang hymns like Victory in Jesus. I heard an old, old story, how the Savior came from glory. Those are the type of songs that we sang, and then something happened when I hit about the 5th or 6th grade in whatever the youth program was, which it was a great youth program, but then it started getting we had our own services for kids or for teens or junior high people, and we didn't sing hymns with the piano and the organ. Instead, now there was a guitar, and then there was a bass guitar, and then there was drums, and then we were singing these contemporary hymns, and I suppose I liked them okay, but then over time, as you got older, and as that crop of kids became older, then that contemporary music started to replace the hymns in church, and then the organ and piano, not so much. We're going to kind of mimic the proscenium stage, and we're going to have the guitarist on stage. We're going to have the bassist on stage. We're going to have the drums on stage. And over time, as I became an adult, for whatever reason, I guess I began to resent that style of worship. If that's you, that's great, to each his own. But I feel like maybe this was an effort to try to attract more young people by imitating, the Aerosmith concerts or whatever they were going to. I don't know. I've been to like 3 concerts my whole life. But you understand what I'm saying. Like, so when I think of Christian music that's on the radio, I kind of think of that, and I'm just kind of like over it. The church I go to now, We just sing hymns. And that's not to say that's the only way you can worship God corporately. It's not. But that's and by the way, that's not to say that that's the only criteria for deciding what church to go to is the style of music. I would discourage that for the most part. Although, if you're going to a church where they have somebody doing like interpretive dance or something, I would say okay. But that's just kind of me. That's why I don't really listen to Christian music on the radio. Again, I stick to like soundtracks and scores and things like that, except on Fridays, where 40s Junction comes on the radio. And it's kind of like I'm now trained my brain from a sensory standpoint. It's like when I turn 40s Junction on, it's like I feel the stress of the week kind of go away, and then when I get into the car to come to work on Monday, you know what's on? The 40s Junction. It's still on, and I'm like, okay, let's turn it back on. Talk radio. The work week has begun. Anyway, that's mine. That's my story. A little personal information for you. Carl Benji, I grew up with old time rock and roll and country. Hartu says same. All right. More on this. Let's see here. Got a few more. So Richard Barris has an interesting post on this. Now, he's one of the guys who's been, he's a pollster, and he's been predicting an absolute bloodbath for Republicans in the midterms. But he says this: I'm screenshotting all the seething, panicking neocons. It's rather entertaining. What happened to trust the plan? He says, I don't care about the terms of the deal. What so many do not seem to understand is that unconditional surrender was never a realistic option. Those scenarios are the dreams of a naive, myth-believing and frankly entitled generation who already selfishly squandered our superpower status and inheritance of future generations. So you can see where he's coming from. He's pretty upset about all this. But he is noting what I have noted, which is the amount of people, at least on X. I guess should we say X isn't real life, which it's not. And it's very easy to get in this bubble of X and think that this is what the entire electorate feels. But I will just say these prominent voices in the pro-war idea are very upset. They're very upset. Mark Levin is now insisting that this deal needs to be a treaty. So this is the new talking point. Lindsey Graham is saying the same thing. Lindsey Graham is saying, I look forward to, the Senate, through consent, advise and consent. Here is Mark Levin with the latest talking point, which is Trump just can't make this deal. Trump just can't make this deal on his own. It's got to go through the Senate.
Congress is going to review it because that's not discussed either. Yes, Congress will have to look at this. And most importantly, they're going to look at whether this deal can be upheld, I suspect. Now, this should be treated as a treaty under the Constitution for we constitutional conservatives. But Obama and Congress, Democrats and all Republicans but one, Tom Cotton, all of them decided not to apply the treaty requirements under the Constitution to the Obama-Iran nuclear deal.
Interesting, he says Tom Cotton. I keep seeing these reports that Tom Cotton is promoting a bill or promoting a section of one of the national security bills that they're going to talk about that would somehow require that the United States share its intelligence automatically with Israel, which we are seeing play out in real time if the reports are accurate. Why that would be a terrible idea. We're seeing it play out in real time. Why, as we see the reports that the memorandum of understanding has not been given to the Israelis. Or, Netanyahu said he hasn't seen it yet. So, if that's true, there would be scenarios where this is a terrible idea, by the way. Why would we do that? Why would we need to put that into the bill? Unless you put it into the bill because, you're worried that people are starting to figure out that, hey, the concept of sovereignty is a good thing, right? You can be allies You can have allies, but the reason the word ally even exists is it implies that there are two separate sovereigns who are choosing to voluntarily cooperate. Also, the whole Russia thing. We're kind of moving on to the next phase of the show. Well, I mean, this is just briefly. I'm just highlighting this. We mentioned this earlier. Laura Loomer is so upset with Tulsi Gabbard for revealing the bioweapons labs, and she is now saying that she's just repackaging Russian talking points, which is exactly what the deep state and the Biden administration said when the initial claim that the U.S. had bioweapons labs in Ukraine was out there. That's exactly what the deep state, the intel oligarchy, the Biden administration said. Tulsi Gabbard confirming that, no, we have been doing this. We have been essentially funding bioterrorism across the world, and it's a bad thing. Laura Loomer saying, no, that's just Russia. It's a Russian disinformation. Yeah, okay, whatever. In the meantime, there was this big event over the weekend. We didn't have a show yesterday, so we didn't cover it. The UFC, huge event. I'm not a huge, UFC fan or whatever. I mean, I think some of the fighters are quite based, as the kids say. That was certainly proven when you had that one guy say that Michelle Obama is a man. There's that one song. Somebody created that song about Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama is a man. His name is Michael. He's a trans. Anyway, that certainly was quite the spectacle. From all reports, it was apparently very well done. Just an incredible spectacle. It opens up the debate about, should it have happened, should it not have happened? I don't really care, honestly, at this point. You know why I don't care about the left that's upset about the UFC fight? It's because the UFC fight on the lawn of the White House is a whole lot better than Joe Biden inviting a tranny there, who went topless, who literally took his top off. And displayed the silicone for all to see. So in a response to the UFC event, though, the left wanted to coordinate some sort of no kings answer to it, and it sounded like this.
No one is getting left behind this time. No one is getting left behind. Not this time. No one is getting left behind this time. How do we get there? Together or never get there at all. This time, no one is getting left behind this time.
I will just say, per my previous conversation, my previous background about the church stuff, this looks like a really, really bad worship service, doesn't it? Like a really, really bad one. You got the screen, got to have the projector. Then, of course, you had Bette Midler, who, I didn't even know who Bette Midler was until when I was a young kid, I watched that one Seinfeld episode where she was, Rochelle, and George, injured her in the softball competition. But she took to the stage.
Oh, you fascists bound to lose. You're bound to lose. You fascists bound to lose. Hey there, all you fascists. Let me put you straight. When you come for the rest of us, we'll fight you at the gate and you will lose. You fascists bound to lose. Oh, you fascists bound to lose. You're bound to lose.
Need some spoons, Need a couple of spoons for that song. I'm trying to analyze like the lyrics themselves. Like, I mean, who got together? How did the creative process work? It goes to show you how in just a way there's like a psychosis going on where it's just I don't know, man. They're trying to will a reality that simply doesn't exist. The left continues to lose on so many fronts, and so it's just like their dream. It's like all they think about, right? Well, he's bound to lose. It's got to happen sometime. Bound to lose, Robert Mueller. Remember Robert Mueller? Robert Mueller, bound to lose. Robert Mueller is we're gonna have a happy, have yourself a Robert Mueller Christmas. Remember all that? Remember that? Yeah, the psychosis for these people is absolutely real. Irish 539, loony lefties, you say. Yes, exactly. Darlene Dempsey, so stupid, pathetic, is what NJV 3657 says. Amy 1019 says, sounded like Weird Al. That's crazy, man. Yeah, per the previous subject on the Russians and the bioweapons, Roz 2798 says Newland admitted it to Congress. You are exactly right. So then the question is, why would Laura Loomer? I know she hates Tulsi Gabbard because Tulsi Gabbard is anti-war, which again is perceived by people like Mark Levin. Okay, if you're anti-war, you're anti-Semitic, which is crazy. But she admitted this in Congress in testimony to Marco Rubio. It's like a part of public record. It's everywhere. It's all over the place. So, anyway. Oh, this is funny about the about the Michelle Obama man comment at UFC. You have the President Trump's potential assassin being successful, civil war. But because it missed, we got a guy on the White House lawn saying Michelle Obama being called a man at a UFC White House event. That's pretty funny right there. Also, we have this kind of in line with the performance. In Finland, they made a dance to show migrants not to rape them.
Don't touch me there. This is my no-no square.
This can't be real.
Stop. Don't touch me there. This is my no-no square.
That cannot be real. There's no way. Megan Basham says, if you had asked me to guess how Nordic countries address the problem of migrant sexual assault, this is about what I would have pictured. So Basil the Great, in Finland, they made a dance to show migrants not to rape them. Don't touch me. This is my no-no square. There's no way. That can't be real. That's like something off of The Office. John Thune selling us out. Oh, here it is. Okay, this was a terrible thing. So the LAPD is under fire because they killed a family dog. Headline: family dog shot and killed by LAPD during Knicks celebration at condo in Canoga Park. This is the dog they shot in a Knicks jersey. That is some sort of poodle mix, maybe a golden doodle or some sort of poodle. Okay. A hypoallergenic dog, doesn't shed. And apparently this belonged to a man, but his mom was celebrating the Knicks winning, and the neighbors heard screaming because they were shouting because the Knicks won. So they called the police, and the police responded to the complaint to check, do a wellness check, and apparently the dog got out of the apartment when the door was opened, and ran at the officers. There's nothing that suggests the dog tried to bite them, but maybe he did. And they shot and killed the dog right there on the spot. And I'm not going to play the clip because of FCC guidelines for our cable affiliate, but yeah, this is the owner there just wailing over the body of his dead dog. And you see the cops. Look how many cops were there at this point. I guess they all showed up after the firearm was discharged, but he's just absolutely, unbelievably upset by this, and I get it. But I've this happens a lot. This happens, way more than it should, and I don't understand it. I really don't. I mean, if you've got a Belgian Malinois or maybe even a German Shepherd or certainly a pit bull, okay, I understand. Like I understand being very weary of that. But I've been around dogs my whole life. I've been bitten by dogs. I'm an owner of a German Shepherd. You know, this is the second German Shepherd I've owned. You know, yeah, they could be vicious, you know, but like, and I've played rough with dogs. I'm not afraid of dogs. I guess that's I don't understand why people are afraid of dogs. Okay, let me rephrase that. I understand why people would be afraid of dogs. I don't understand how you could become a police officer, that you could sign up as a police officer where there's a threat that people would shoot you just for being a police officer, that you are at risk every day for being a police officer. Violent criminals would target you because you're a police officer, and you're afraid of a dog. I don't understand that. I don't understand the mentality. I don't get it, but it happens way too often where these cops just kill a dog for doing what a dog does. Do you know what a dog does? When strangers come to the door, a dog naturally barks. They investigate. You're on their territory. And for officers to just pull up and shoot dogs, I don't understand it. I guess I just don't understand. Like, even if a dog attacked me, I generally know what to do. Now, I mean, again, if it's like a Belgian Malinois, those things are not right. There's something, I'm sorry. Those dogs are not right to me. I almost bought one time, and I went out to a police trainer. They were training the dogs for it, and I got to see them in action. They're incredible. I mean, they're basically like cats, but dogs, right? They have the athletic ability of a cat. They can climb trees, do all kinds of stuff. I could just tell in the eyes, this is not me. Versus the German Shepherd, who can also be trained to be, you know, an amazing attack dog or a police dog. But there's just something different. Like I understand shepherds. I get them. So I guess I could understand it. But you're talking about a golden doodle, or you're talking about a poodle. It's just, I guess I don't understand. Like, if one of those dogs attacked me, do you know how quickly an average man who's not afraid of dogs, I guess, you know how quickly you could put a dog in the dirt 6 feet under if they were an actual, you know, threat to your life? Not to mention, you have a firearm. You don't have to go for the firearm right away. I guess I do not understand this. And maybe you guys think I'm crazy and I'm too, I don't know. I don't know. So Calpurnia61, I was an electric worker, was attacked by a dog, ended up in the hospital. I have 6 rescue dogs. And again, I get it. I mean, I'm not saying there's no threat there, but there is something kind of strange about it to me. Why sign up to be a police officer if you don't know how to deal with a dog doing what dogs do? I don't understand that at all. Folks, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Paul Harrell program. Hopefully tomorrow, Rob and Eric will be back in studio, and we'll have a great one for you. Thanks so much. I want to give a shout-out to our sponsors, Red Vive Health, New Horizon Real Estate, Gateway Sight and Sound, Pet Club 247, and Sherrod Chiropractic. And we will see you tomorrow.